I'm Avani Sapra and I'm a junior consultant from Turner and Townsend, and we're joined today by Megan Cresswell, also from Turner and Townsend. This is a retrofit information support and expertise event, which is fully funded by the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero and is delivered by Turner and Townsend. There will be a relatively short presentation followed by plenty of opportunity for questions and discussion. The event will be an hour long and will finish on time. Please keep your microphones muted and your cameras switched off during the presentation, and the slide deck will be made available after the event in a follow-up email to everyone that attended today. There'll also be a clean recording of this and all of the masterclasses in the resources section of the RISE website, and we'll put other useful links in the chat. Please ask questions in the chat function as we go, or at the end there'll be an opportunity to come off mute and ask a question directly after the presentation. Finally, there'll be a quick poll and a word cloud question at the end of the discussion. Please complete these to help us get an understanding of your level of knowledge in the topics. Thank you again for joining, and I'll now hand over to Megan for the presentation.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Avani. It's nice to see lots of people on the call today. So as Avani said, going through both the local grant and the Social Housing Fund Warm Homes applications today, just giving kind of a brief overview, and with plenty of time, hopefully, for questions and answers. I hope you've come primed some questions, which we'll try and answer as best as possible. As Avani said, I'm Megan Cresswell. I'm a senior consultant at Turner and Townsend. We're delivering the RISE service on behalf of the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. I have worked previously on the technical assistance facility since SHCF Wave 1, so I'm quite experienced in these applications. So hopefully be able to answer questions as they come up. Still people joining, but I think because this is being recorded, we'll just we'll crack on and leave plenty of time for questions at the end. So just starting off with the agenda. So we will discuss both schemes today. We'll kind of give a quick overview of the Warm Homes Local Grant, the expression of interest model, which there is obviously slightly limited detail on yet because it hasn't been published. So I'll give a bit of a brief on that. And then once that's been published online, we'll have some follow-up sessions to go into a bit more detail on the local grants side. Then we'll go into a bit more detail on the Social Housing Fund, breakdown of the application form itself, what the sections, so looking at declarations, application details, summary of information, annexes. And then we'll go into slightly more detail on some of the key questions, which kind of have the biggest word count, and then just a summary of the session today. So this slide just provides a brief overview of the Warm Homes scheme and what it's kind of trying to achieve. So the Warm Homes plan is to upgrade up to 5 million homes. The performance target is to reach at least EPC band C, and with a longer term focus of achieving net zero by 2050. And as you'll have seen, there is on here it's around the statutory fuel poverty target of 2030, but it's likely that's coming into policy for all homes to be EPC C by 2030. With the new government in place, the scheme targets around low-income households and social homes, and we'll come on to a little bit around eligibility criteria later on. The split of the schemes, as I've kind of discussed already, you've got the local grant and the social housing fund. They're government-funded schemes which are delivered by local authorities, combined authorities, registered providers of social housing, and registered charities as well. If there's any questions on kind of eligible organisations, please do get in touch with the RISE inbox, which I think Tiffany will put in the chat at the end. And then properties are eligible with EPC ratings of D to G, similar to previous schemes. And the kind of overall aim is to support delivery of energy performance upgrades and low carbon heating. So as I said on the agenda, we'll just quickly go through a brief overview of the local grant expression of interest allocation model. So the slightly different to the previous scheme, so the LAD and the HUG2, the department have taken on board a lot of feedback from those schemes, and it's kind of simplified the model and the approach, which will see this expression of interest application form come in as like the first step to the process of allocating funding. So it's an allocation model whereby all eligible local authorities who complete the form when the window opens, which we believe will be imminently. So hopefully you're all prepared to kind of review that and put in your EOIs as soon as possible. Those will be allocated funding. So it's a simplification of the challenge fund model, which was used for phase 2 of the HUG2 scheme, and it's a move away from the competition model, which we saw under LAD as well. There will be no pass or fail assessment of the initial expression of interest, but we'll still assure that projects meet a minimum criteria for successful delivery, which will be via the delivery assurance check before funding can be drawn down to upgrade homes. And within the expression of interest as well, there'll be kind of certain aspects which the department will be looking to see. So kind of any issues will be flagged through RISE to just support you through that process. As you can see, that it's kind of clearly stated in the guidance, so hopefully you've all had a look through the local grant guidance. There's some simple kind of models of the process in there. But essentially, you go through the initial expression of interest form, which you will submit, and there'll be a deadline for that to be submitted. There will be a mobilisation period where there'll be a mid-mobilisation review, and that will be supported through RISE and your support manager that you'll get allocated for that service. You'll then sit a delivery assurance check, which will be quite similar to how it's run previously, where you'll be kind of sitting down with the department and you'll be running through a kind of collation of your key documents, things like your eligibility checks, kind of fraud management plans, procurement plans, resourcing and team charts and those kind of documents. So yeah, the window is for submitting an EOI is expected to open in October. As I said, obviously there's a few weeks left, so it's going to be very soon. Just a note to say that those local authorities within the West Midlands Combined Authority and the Greater Manchester Combined Authority areas aren't eligible to participate in the scheme. So similar to the Social Housing Fund, those combined authorities will be receiving an allocation of funding as part of the commitment to the Trailblazer devolution deals. So there's some contacts there if you sit in any of those areas to get involved in those in the funding through those schemes. So that's kind of a very, very brief overview of the local grant. As I said, there'll be some more information coming through soon. But there's quite a lot of information in the guidance as well. So if you haven't got any questions in the end, then just let me know. So coming on to the Social Housing Fund, the application form has been released and we'll introduce it to you now and go through it in a bit more detail. The deadline for the application to be in is midday on the Monday the 25th of November. So I guess ideally when you're looking at a working day, you would want to be probably getting in the week before just to make sure no errors occur. And the application form is live on the website. The link is there and we can post a link in the chat if you need it. So there's quite a few types of forms on there, which you might have seen already. It's just a breakdown of whether you're in a consortium or whether it's going to be an individual application. And then there's 4. So there's one for Challenge Fund and one for strategic partnerships for both of those different routes as well. So to gain funding for a Warm Home Social Housing Fund retrofit programme, the completed application form must provide sufficient information to demonstrate compliance with the eligibility criteria and the evaluation criteria. So when we look at the eligibility criteria, there's obviously a section on that in the guidance, so worth familiarising yourself with that. But it's looking into kind of those eligible organisations, types of properties, looking at how you would approach infill measures and homes, types of measures that can be included, things like installers, safety and quality. When you look at Trustmark, there's also a mention of residents as well, and obviously there's a question on residents and how you engage residents in the application form as well. The evaluation criteria is set by the department. Obviously, this isn't something that anyone else sees, so kind of that's what's in the application form, and the guidance is how you approach that. So just a very quick introduction to the application form. It's on a Excel document this year. There's no supplementary tables in addition, and there's also no annex templates either. So that's just one thing to be noted. Everything is included within the document, obviously with additional annexes needing to be added upon submission. Just looking at so just a breakdown of how the questions are assessed. The ones that are assessed and weighted are only within the strategic partnerships application form. And there within each question there is a percentage about what that weighting looks like. Binary questions assessed but not weighted and do not count towards overall score, but they will be assessed, particularly within the challenge fund application, and responses will either pass or fail or not pass. That individual question will form part of moderation, considered as part of the review. And then you've got the information only questions, and these questions they act to help the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero understand necessary information on projects and enable facilitation of effective delivery. So there is quite a few of those in the application form, and whilst they're not necessarily being kind of scored upon, they will provide more detail and assurance that of your application and your project. Just a kind of deeper dive into the kind of initial bit before we get to the questions, so all the other bits basically. So declarations these are just yes/no questions that act to ensure that the lead applicant who's putting together the application form understands the guidelines that their project must meet and have done any steps required prior to completing this form. Application details, questions which seek details from lead applicants about the housing stock location, any funding previously received, and contact details. Summary information, this collates the information about the proposed project's costs and the total funding that's been requested. One question in this section requested description of the project for public. The answer to the question is limited to 100 words for a single bidder and 150 for a consortia. So, as I said earlier, the annexes they run from A to E, and we'll go into a bit more detail in a minute on those. There is a guideline length for each annex within the application form itself, and all annexes are mandatory for the Social Housing Fund Wave 3. They all need to be completed and submitted at application stage, and it's expected that you will complete these to the best standard possible, as they're crucial to your application. They provide the evidence behind kind of the answers that you'll include in the application form. As I said, there's no templates for annexes this wave. It's believed that most of you will have delivered these projects already, and therefore you've got things that you can use and adapt again. Similar with there being no supplementary tables, figures will be submitted into the application form itself. I think most of them in section 2 and 3. And therefore no particular property list is needed to be provided at application stage, which is different to previous waves of funding. So here's a breakdown just of the annexes. As I said, most of these others, but they're all the same as what's been done previously. So hopefully you can just take what you've already created, what's worked well, and implement them for wave 3. So this includes a project plan, which I think I've got, we might go into a breakdown more. That has a scoring against it, so it's 5% of the project. I think we go into more detail on that question in a minute. But obviously that one's probably got the most significance, I think, of all the annexes, because it actually is a large percentage of the scoring. So 1, 2, obviously spend quite a bit of time on getting that right in terms of the stages as part of your project. You want to be breaking it down and including kind of the setup to delivery. You've got the delivery phase and then like the post installation phase as well to think about, and all those things that come, you know, in between those phases. Annex B is around the evidence of secured co-funding and is any secured blended funding to be utilised. That's assessed but not weighted, so it'll be a kind of a pass or a not pass situation, and that could be up to 5 pages. So for consortia, obviously there'll be different elements that you need to attach to that. Annex C is the risk and issues register. Again, this has been a template before, so it's probably just worth using something similar to what you've done previously. There within the application form, there is a request for specific risks that need to be included in the register. These are things like resident refusals, planning permission, properties that are eligible at application stage that actually drop out due to various reasons, which I think a lot of these have been taken from maybe from lessons learned from SHDF Wave 2. Look at info leaseholders, materials, contracts, procurement, issues with resourcing, project team, variations in cost, complex to decarbonise homes, and also suitable homes, and finding the dropouts and stuff because of resident engagement. So to be honest, all of the ones that are mandatory that the department have listed in the application form cover quite a wide range of risks. So there's a good kind of insight there into what you'd be looking to include, obviously as additional project specific risks as well. Sorry about that, I've got a bit of a tickle in my throat. So on to Annex D. There's another one that is assessed and weighted, so it's 25% of the application score. This is around explaining your competence in delivering the project, and it directly relates to question 5.3 in both the strategic partnership and the challenge fund applications. This is kind of like a case study or like a news article or a story around previous retrofit delivery. It would be good to focus on kind of successes, engagement with residents, but also things like lessons learned and where you've taken steps that you actually were like an issue or a risk. You can evidence that you're going to, change going forward in the delivery of your Wave 3 project. Annex E, again, is assessed and weighted. It's 10% of the total score. And this is kind of covering off the value for money section 3 of strategic partnerships. Justification of cost provided the project, and explanation of why it's a good value for money. So yeah, that's up to 4 pages. And that one is definitely worth probably getting your RISE support managers to check through, just to make sure you're on the right lines with what's been provided. I think we saw from previous waves that this was probably one of the weaker areas. So just to try and actually provide the right evidence that the department are looking for as part of those checks. So definitely want to take your time and work with your contractors and your supply chain to make sure it's covering what's required within the application form and the questions itself. So I think, so we've split this down into individual consortia, but I think they're basically the same. Obviously, they'll just be slightly different in terms of the length of the annex. there'll be a slight difference in how you approach it as well. So obviously you'll be the focus will be on the lead applicant, and ideally you would have individual members, like kind of a brief of individual members in there, covering it off. So that kind of approaches a consortia as a whole, but the focus will be kind of on the lead and the ones with the majority stock in your consortia. But again, any kind of queries around that, please speak to your support manager, and they'll help you through the process. So yeah, they are the same. So we're just going to do a bit more of a detailed dive on some of the key questions. This doesn't go into all of them, so if you've got any that you wanted to discuss in a bit more detail at the end, we can bring it up in the Q&A section. But these ones are kind of taken, I think, with the biggest word count and put into here. So this is question 3.1. Not 100% sure if it's the same in the SP and the CF application form, but it's around the project plan. This obviously is looking at the annex. So actually, yeah, this is what I spoke about before. So in terms of what is to be expected at this stage, obviously at application stage, you're not expected to be able to set out all activities to be undertaken in detail at this stage. However, it should be expected to see that all key activities are covered and placed in an appropriate timeline for delivery, mobilisation, all those different stages. Activities undertaken in the mobilisation period and then are defined as the period. Oh yeah, you should be able to define the period between notification of grant award and submission of the first phase request, should be set out in additional detail. So obviously that's specific to the Challenge Fund application form. And again, it specifically states that they want to see what's kind of going on in that mobilisation period before the initial phase request goes in. Your plan should also reflect the submission of phase requests as set out in question 3.3. If you're currently delivering on wave 2.1 or 2.2 of SHDF, please include any activities that will be undertaken on that project during this delivery window as part of this plan. Plans should be created in Microsoft Project, Excel, or similar software, and they should list tasks line by line, including forecast start and end dates, durations, and owners. They're the kind of main things you want to see. And I'm sure some people have got really good project plans, and maybe some need support with. So it's just really getting those kind of key bits in, like task, owners, dates, duration, which hopefully you can, use and adapt from previous waves. And there should be kind of clear interdependencies between tasks as well. So they kind of follow on and it makes sense in a logical order to what's coming next. Yeah, so just along the left there is just some of the indicators of what need to be included. So planning and setup, including project team establishment, similar to kind of the milestones we saw on previous waves. The necessary procurement activity, resident engagement, again in that kind of phased approach. So that might be how you split that one out. Steps needed for project design and coordination. So that's obviously looking at the PAS process, and then the installation phase and the post-installation activities. There's obviously a particular focus on kind of evaluation and ongoing monitoring. So that's something which is probably additional to maybe previous project plans that you've put together. So that's probably just one to think about, look at the guidance in terms of what's required for that ongoing evaluation piece. So this is just the same, but just for a consortium. It just needs to be, yeah, so I think I just highlighted it before in terms of the differences between an individual bid and a consortia. You would be expected to, again, provide a detailed plan for the delivery of the project, broken down by consortium member where possible. Ideally, it depends obviously how your consortia is set up to deliver. But there would be obviously overarching consortia plan, and then maybe you could do a separate one by member. It depends how you want to, but again, I would just maybe check it through with your support manager as well, just to get their view on it if you're unsure. So yeah, the kind of key tasks, I think, which you'll be looking to cover, we said around making sure that the tasks are line by line, including forecast start and end dates, there's durations and owners. You'll be looking to kind of fill the areas like project setup, the work that's required to start delivery, so your mobilization period, kind of PAS process delivery, so kind of before installation of works, but end of mobilization period, delivery of the actual works on site, and any kind of resident liaison that's obviously going on throughout this process, and then the post-installation handover and ongoing support. So this is question 5.2. It's exactly the same question as what was in wave 2.1 and 2.2, which is explain how you will manage this project to deliver to time, quality and cost. This is the same question for consortiums and individual applications. So you kind of want to break it down by those three sections. So within the answer, you're looking to provide kind of a direct response to how you will deliver your project to timescales, to the quality required for the scheme, and also obviously the main thing, which is around costs and providing value for money. In this answer, again, not within the application form, there's quite a lot of a breakdown from the department as to what they expect to see. So make sure you use that as a guide. And then your support manager will help you through the critical frame review process, where we'll be able to pick out any additional details that might be missing from your answers. But you want to break it down to like how you will manage the project, so what actual systems you will use to manage the project, whether it's kind of an agile, waterfall, you might have Prince 2 embedded in your organization, which you can use. So kind of outlining your project management approach to start with is really, really useful to have that kind of high level response, which obviously will link to like your project plan and the approach to that as well. How you plan to use if you have like a data management system to manage the project and create reports, so that kind of reporting management side of things for kind of time and quality, and actually covers all of those three areas. Internal governance for managing the project, and then obviously particularly for consortium members, how you approach governance for delivery. Cost and budget management, so your relationship with supply chain, how you'll manage things like inflation, unexpected, unforeseen costs, enabling works, those kind of things, how you approach that. And then a brief kind of overview of obviously the risk register, which is an annex, and how you'll kind of stick to that and manage any issues that might arise. So yeah, obviously a really crucial answer, and again, probably one that was slightly weaker we've seen from previous waves. So really good to kind of bolster the answer in this and break it down. There's obviously there's a decent amount of words that can go towards these answers. So using the word count carefully, getting lots of facts and figures, numbers, kind of buzzwords, I would say, to get into these answers. Oh yeah, and then that red box actually really, or orange box, really important, is obviously how you will manage the spend profile of 33% grant each year, and the split of the requirements for co-funding as well. So that will come into the cost element. And then looking at question 5.3, so this is around explaining your confidence in delivering this project. This isn't an individual one. We've got just a slide on the consortia focus as well. This question is definitely one of the largest. It's assessed and weighted, and it takes up 25% of the strategic partnership route. It is a question to provide experience on previous delivery and success, but also lessons learned from previous delivery of retrofit schemes, but also a kind of a narrative and a statement around your confidence in delivering your Wave 3 project, and that obviously comes off the back of your previous experiences and what you've learned, and how you can kind of embed that going forward to ensure success of your project. So yeah, there's a bit at the bottom right there around evidencing successful delivery, which comes into which links obviously to the annex. An overview of the project and its objectives and evidence of delivery performance, and that's where you would link it to the annex in terms of using case studies and referencing past projects examples as well. So I think this answer wants to be really, really clear in what it's trying to achieve, what you're trying to show from it. I do think kind of self-reflection and talking about like where things have gone wrong is actually a really good thing to get into these kind of answers, because it shows, you know, learning and that you're willing to take on, you know, feedback and appreciate where things need to be done better. But essentially, you just want to get across what evidence you've got of achieving retrofit, from previous projects that show your ability to deliver, which might coincide with your supply chain's ability to deliver as well, if that's something you're carrying on. Maybe some kind of resident interview statements that you've got from them to show kind of success of previous projects. High level numbers are really good. Facts, figures, what did you do, how many homes retrofitted, carbon savings, fuel bill savings, those kind of things are really good to get in. If it was done on time and to budget, and you know you achieved all your milestones you were hoping to achieve, then get that you know in bold and stuff in your case study. Really good to see that. But as I said, yeah, talking about learned experiences and how this has informed the delivery of this new project to prevent any future issues and any of those things happening again. If any consortium members have not completed retrofit before, it's how the lead applicant, you want to kind of highlight how the lead applicant is going to help ensure that these consortium members can achieve their projects, and what support, you know, other members and the lead will give to those relatively immature organisations. And then evidence from previous consortium success can be included to show their track record of delivery as well, and maybe what the consortia lead or partners or kind of model, what benefits that has in terms of delivery and the confidence in delivering the project. Actually, I was just going to say, I think there was a bit on so for consortium applicants, they just need to provide a narrative to their confidence in delivering in the consortium and the contribution of individual members. So if there's really specific like members that delivered really well, might be good highlighting them. And then yeah, equally if there's any kind of challenges that have been faced, again bringing those out would be good to see. So yeah, there's just for consortium applicants. Yeah, we've just gone through that. Yeah, I think I've covered that really that before. So that is a quick run through of some of the questions, but there's obviously quite a few others that have got a decent amount of word count and also are assessed and weighted, particularly focusing on resident engagement and how you'll bring them along the journey. Again, maybe talking about previous experiences, you know, your resident liaison officers, what learnings you've had from previous and how you'll implement them going forward. There's a question around commercial and procurement strategy, again, similar to previous waves. So just providing that assurance around delivery. If you've got previous supply chains in place, which you can carry over, and the reasons why, and this kind of builds into that previous question around confidence in delivering this project. You know, if you've got that supply chain embedded already, what the benefits are of that. And then there's obviously a section around kind of value for money assurance and evidence of costs, which links to the annexes around justification of costs and thinking about contingencies, inflation, anything additional unforeseen that you might come across in your project. Because as we know, unless you really get out to property and start pulling it apart, a lot of these things aren't seen at application stage, where you're going off kind of desktop data. So potentially using your previous delivery of projects to understand what that additional cost might be, And obviously ideally sending people out to properties within the next few weeks, so you kind of got an idea of what some of those unforeseen works might be, but putting potentially a contingency pot aside to cover those crews off. So just to summarize what just gone through, so hopefully you should now understand what the application form is. I'm sure we've got other sessions as well when we maybe even go into a bit more detail. Type of questions that it contains. Well, there's a poll popped up on the screen, so hopefully you can all answer that. Yeah, we went through quickly the declarations and annexes and just some of the key questions and what they're looking for as well. As I said, we'll be delivering more of these sessions, and once the local grant expression of interest application form is out as well, we'll be delivering something further on that, just a bit more detail to run through some of the questions. But as I said as well, please get in touch with your support manager through Rise if you've got any additional questions on them to look at anything. Please answer the polls in the chat, and I think that is, oh, here we go. There's another session on the local grant expression of interest form, which I assume will be published by this date, so we can go through some of the questions in a bit more detail. And then here is just if you haven't completed your self-assessment already, please do, and you'll get a dedicated support manager who can help you with some of these queries. And the kind of main benefit, I think, is doing a critical friend review of your application, which hopefully you get ready to do in the next couple of weeks, and we can support you with that.